companies poised to make money from the increased use of fossil fuels. And yesterday, I wrote a letter to oil interests asking for details regarding their lobbying efforts. A month ago, I sent the EPA administrator a letter highlighting how the agency rejected its own experts' conclusions that the CAFE rollback will result in increased deaths, pollution, and job losses. Mr. Wareham, a few questions, yes or no. If you can't answer yes or no, I'm just going to move on. Were you briefed on the memo written by the Office of Transportation and Air Quality detailing the problems with the proposed rule?
Yes.
And was Administrator Wheeler briefed as well, to your knowledge? Okay. Has Ms. King or anyone else at NHTSA told you that NHTSA will correct any of the problems identified by the Office of Transportation and Air Quality?
Well, that's not susceptible to a yes or no answer, so I'm happy
Well, I
to
mean,
give you
I'm
an
just
answer
asking you
or
if they said they would
move on.
correct them.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the crowd noise.
I'm just trying to find out if anyone at NHTSA told you that NHTSA would correct the problems.
Well, so I'm sorry, it's not a yes or no, but that assumes everything my office said is correct. And as I said earlier, these are very, very complex
Let me go to
issues,
Ms. King.
And we are
Then let
in
me
the
just ask
process
her
of-
directly. Will you correct the problems identified by that EPA office?
Where we find errors in math or where we find opportunities to improve the modeling, and those are opportunities that we can, given the given time and with given resources, improve. Absolutely, we want the best possible information
All right, I appreciate
to inform the rule.
I appreciate that.
Thank you, Chairman.
Now, I requested a variety of, this goes back to Ms. DeGette and the problems with us getting access to documents. I requested a variety of briefing materials in my May 23rd letter, much of which is in your possession, Mr. Wareham. Will you commit to providing those materials requested, yes or no, by the end of next week?
As I responded earlier, those kind of requests I have to take to my congressional office, and I'd be happy to do that.
All right. I just want to say I'm deeply troubled by EPA's lack of transparency and its disregard for science and the expertise of its career staff. EPA and NHTSA should promptly comply with this committee's oversight request moving forward, again, along the lines of Ms. DeGette's request. Now, I wanted to ask about UARG. Mr. Wareham, I can't let you leave here without asking you just a few clarifying questions about your former association with Utility Air Regulatory Group, or UARG, and I want to make sure I get my facts straight. So first, just to confirm, you represented UARG when you were at Hunton, is that correct, yes or no?
That's correct. UARG was a client.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but that means you represented each individual member of UARG, is that correct?
That's not my understanding.
All right, so was each individual member of UARG also a client of Hunton as individual members?
That's not my understanding.
And then finally, you told Politico in February, and I quote, UARG is an entity, it's a legal entity, end of quote. Just explain to me what you meant by that, if you can. When you said that it was an entity, a legal entity, what did you mean?
I don't recall that conversation, so I'm not going to speculate as to what that was about.
Okay. You know, I'm just trying to confirm statements that you made to the press, so, you know, I don't know why it's so difficult to answer, but whatever. I guess if you're not willing to answer some of these things, we can find another time to summon you back to answer them. But the reason I'm asking these questions is because in April of this year, this committee opened an investigation into the Utility Air Regulatory Group, and that's the secretive litigation group formerly run by Mr. Wareham and his former colleagues at the law firm then known as Hunton and Williams. And I was very pleased that 1 month later, in response to the investigation, the group announced it would dissolve. And so we are closely monitoring their progress. But I just want to reiterate again, because my time is almost gone here. It is very important, wherever possible, to give us documents. You know, whether it's the request from Ms. DeGette, who's our Oversight and Investigations Chair, or my own in these letters. To be honest, we have had a certain level of cooperation from the EPA on other issues, and I just would like to see more cooperation from your office, if at all possible. Thank you. I yield back.